She explained that she had gone to the vegetable patch to get the carrots and that she had made the carrot cake. Pip thought aloud that, since the note was signed RR, it must be either Robert or Ralph Remy. Zach wore a blank expression, but Ant smiled and raised his hand. "I was the one who left the note," he said. "I was just trying to do something nice for my father, for once," he added with a wry grin. Zach chimed in, warming to the game. "I admit, my father and I haven't been very close lately. It was meant to be a nice gesture after we had a slightly fraught conversation this morning. But someone killed him before he ever got to see the carrot cake." "What time did you leave the note, Bobby?" Pip asked, studying his face as she poised her pen to write. Sure, it was just a game, but Pip didn't like to miss details, and she certainly didn't like to lose. "It was late morning, I think," Ant replied. "Yeah, around 11. The cook wasn't in here." "See? Told you," Kara said defiantly. Pip turned to her. "I'm not sure this is an I told you so moment." "How's that?" Kara asked. "Bobby left the note at 11, Pip explained. "You could have gone to the vegetable patch at any time after that. It doesn't prove you were there at the exact time of the murder." "Are you calling me a liar?" Kara said, giving Pip a playful shove. "And furthermore," Pip continued, "this shows that at some point during the day, you left the kitchen unattended, which means any one of us could have come in and taken the knife." "Even me," she thought. "Well, Celia, we know Bobby was in here alone when he left the note. It could even be his cover for having access to the murder weapon," and her theory was cut short by a loud, tinny sound that echoed through the house. A scream followed. "It's just the doorbell," Jamie said. The pizza had arrived, and everyone began eating. But Pip remained hunched over her notebook, jotting down alibis and theories. So far, things weren't looking great for Bobby. But maybe that's exactly what the game wanted her to think. As everyone ate, Jamie announced that he had completed his second inspection of the crime scene and had uncovered something interesting. "What is it?" Pip asked, her pen hovering over the page. Maybe solving murders wasn't so different from homework, she thought. She could feel herself getting pulled in, the rest of the world fading away, just like when she got lost in writing an essay, or binge listening to an entire true crime podcast. Her teachers called it excellent focus, but Pip's mom worried it veered closer to obsession. Jamie said that the safe hidden behind the family portrait in Reginald's study had been left open, and was now empty. Kara gasped dramatically, and Jamie gave her a grateful nod. "Someone broke into the safe and removed its contents," he explained. "Ralph told me his father kept important documents and papers in there. It could have happened before or after the murder, but it definitely suggests a possible motive." He glanced at his booklet. But what secrets was Reginald keeping? Whatever was taken might still be somewhere in the house. "Perhaps we should go look for..." Pip didn't need to hear more. She was already on her feet, the others laughing as she took off. She wasn't sure where to begin, but decided on the library, since it had come up several times already. Behind her, Kara and Lauren bounded up the stairs, heading for Reginald's study, perhaps? She entered the library. A large corner sofa and an armchair sat in their usual spots. The TV's dark screen reflected her faceless ghost-like image in the doorway. Above the fireplace was a single shelf with 2 plants and 8 books. Bit of a stretch to call this a library, she thought. On one sofa's armrest lay a newspaper, but it wasn't a clue. She did, however, find a roll of sellotape on top of it. Jamie must have been in here earlier, labeling rooms. Just then, someone else entered, Zach. "Find anything?" he asked. "No," she replied. Zach began checking the books, and Pip joined him, starting from the opposite end of the shelf. She pulled out a paperback copy of Stephen King's It and flipped through it. Something fluttered to the floor. When she picked it up, she saw it was just a bookmark. She slipped it back in around page 400. Hopefully no one would notice, especially not Connor's dad, who was intimidating even on a good day. As she went to reshelve the book, she stopped, locking eyes with the fireplace. Amid the dark coals were scraps of torn white paper. On the top piece, she could just make out the word clue. "Zach," she called out. "Someone tried to destroy this." He helped her collect all the pieces, 18 in total. They began taping them together using the sellotape she'd found earlier. Her eyes caught the word bequeath. "It looks like it's Reginald's will or something," she said. Once they had pieced it together, one side read clue number 2 and the other was labeled the last will and testament of Reginald Remy. "We should show the others," Zach said, standing up. Pip nearly tripped on the way back to the dining room, her eyes fixed on the document. Had the old buzzard left anything to her? "Found it?" Jamie asked, finishing off his last pizza crust. Pip held up the will. Jamie called the others back to the dining room and asked them to take their seats. "Celia and Ralph have found something that must have been stolen from the safe," Jamie announced. "Celia, would you do us the honor of reading it aloud?" Pip read, "I, Reginald Remy, being of sound mind, declare this to be my last will and testament. I revoke all wills and codicils previously made by me. To my son, Ralph Remy, I bequeath total ownership of my company, Remy Hotels and Casinos, to run as he sees fit. In addition, I leave to him Remy Manor on Joy Island, the London townhouse, and a sum of £2 million. To my daughter-in-law, Elizabeth Remy, I bequeath £500,000 and my racehorse, Blue Thunder, as I know she has always loved going to the races. To my niece, Celia Bourne, I bequeath £200,000 and the artwork painted by my late sister, her mother. I know that will mean a lot to her. Finally, to the household staff, it is my wish that they be paid their wages from my estate for a total of 6 months after my death, to give them time to seek new employment. Dated August 17, 1924. Signed Reginald Remy." Jamie appeared behind Pip, glancing over her shoulder at the will. "It looks like this was drawn up recently, just last week," he noted. But there was something else, something glaringly obvious. Pip had known it even as she tried to focus on reading the document aloud. Her eyes kept flicking away, searching for the gaps, as though they couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. She looked up and studied the faces around the table. "Have you realized?" she asked, her eyes scanning the group before settling on Aunt. "Realized what?" he asked. "Robert Bobby Remy," Pip said, holding out the document to him. "You've been written out of your father's will." Aunt snatched the paper from her outstretched hand. His eyes darted down the page. "He really left me nothing?" he said in disbelief. "I'm his eldest son. Even the staff gets something." "We found it in the fireplace," Pip explained. "Someone tried to destroy it. It was ripped to shreds." "Are you implying that was me?" Aunt said defensively, dropping the page onto his empty plate. "Doesn't look great for you," Zach said. "Why?" Aunt snapped. The two glared at each other, though Pip could tell they were close to breaking character. Aunt's crooked mustache didn't help the seriousness of the moment. "Because," Pip said, "your father drew up a new will last week, removing you from it. Then today, someone broke into the safe in his study and tried to destroy that document, presumably so the old will would stand. Oh, and let's not forget, your father was murdered. Desperate for some cash, are you?" "It wasn't me," Aunt said quickly. "I didn't break into that safe, and I didn't destroy that will." "And didn't you say you had a fraught conversation with him this morning?" Pip asked, flipping through her scribbled notes. "Was it fraught because he told you he'd written you out of his will?" "No," Aunt muttered, adjusting his collar. "We always had fraught conversations." "Well, this is all very interesting," Jamie cut in, glancing down at his master booklet. "And speaking of fraught conversations, I wonder if anyone else has overheard anything suspicious or out of place this weekend. Please turn to page 2 in your booklets, but no further." Pip bounded back to her chair and flipped to the next page. "This round. Ralph Remy will reveal he overheard a woman on the phone last night saying some very odd things. It was you he heard, and you must admit to it." However, explain that you were merely discussing work dates with the family who employs you, make them believe it. To deflect suspicion, share that you overheard a heated conversation between Ralph and his father on your way to that phone call. Some of the phrases you heard Ralph say were, "I refuse to do that, Father, this scheme of yours is ridiculous and will never work, and won't get away with this." Pip finished reading and looked up. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed Kara watching her closely, a small smile creeping across her face. Pip clutched her open booklet against her dress, shielding it from view, holding her secrets close to her chest. What did Kara know? Or was Pip just being paranoid, reading too much into it? Make them believe it. That must mean it wasn't true. So why was Celia lying? What was she hiding? Now Pip would have to lie too, and hide the truth along with her. Well, and cleared his throat. I did overhear a conversation between my father and the butler yesterday. Connor straightened up in his chair. Oh? Nothing too bad, I hope. Ant smiled. I just remember my father telling the butler how much he was dreading his birthday. Of course, we all know why that is, considering what happened on this day last year. Silence fell over the table. I don't know what happened last year, Jamie said. Someone care to enlighten me? There was a tragic accident, Ant replied, turning to him. A sudden movement caught Pip's attention. Zack had flinched in his chair, brushing one hand up his arm. Probably just a fly, or something. The family were all staying at Remy Manor for my father's birthday, Ant continued. That afternoon, I went for a walk around the grounds with my mother, Rose Remy. It was just a normal, pleasant walk. A sunny day. Maybe a little windy. I don't really know how it happened, just a terrible, terrible accident. Zack winced again. Pip narrowed her eyes and studied him from across the table. Twice now, in under 30 seconds. She replayed Ant's words in her head. There was a pattern. Both times Zack had flinched right after Ant said the word accident. Was it intentional? Or was Pip just hyper-aware, seeing something where there was nothing? I must have been walking ahead of her, Ant said. I didn't see it happen. But I heard her scream and turned around just as she fell off the cliff. We were so high up. The doctor said she died instantly on impact. He looked down and sighed. I don't know if she stumbled or tripped or something. Just a terrible freak accident. Pip was ready this time. And again, Zack flinched, this time running his fingers awkwardly up his neck. Their eyes met for less than a second. Now she was sure. He was doing it on purpose. It had to be something his booklet told him to do, physically react whenever his brother said the word accident. And what did that mean? Clearly, it seemed Ralph didn't believe his mother's death had been an accident at all. Maybe he secretly believed Bobby had pushed her. That their father had murdered her. Pip grabbed her notebook and quickly scribbled down the points. Father was never the same after her death, Ant said quietly. Zack nodded, frowning. It's so strange. Our mother used to walk those cliffs every single day. She was always careful and never went near the edge. Indeed, Ant agreed. Tragic, Jamie added solemnly. Then he asked, did anyone hear anything strange or suspicious this weekend? Zack raised his hand. Pip braced herself, she could tell he was about to turn on her. Last night, it was quite late. I heard a voice downstairs, in the hallway, as I was heading to my bedroom, Zack began. It was a woman's voice, and I think she was on the phone. I listened for a bit. She was reciting a whole stream of numbers, like 5, 31, 12, 7, just going on and on in this non-sensational stream. Very bizarre. He paused, then added, after that, she lowered her voice. I couldn't make out much, but I did hear her say the word terminate. He glanced nervously at Pip. It wasn't Lizzie's voice, and I doubt it was the cook, Pip stepped in calmly. That was me. I was speaking with my employer. You've never shown much interest, cousin, but as I mentioned earlier, I work as a governess for a well-off family. I had to take some time off to be here for my uncle's birthday, so I was discussing my return with him. He needed to know the dates of his eldest child's upcoming math tests, hence the numbers. And as for the word terminate, I was explaining that I didn't want him to terminate my contract while I was away. Quite late to be having a phone call with your boss, Lauren commented, stepping in to support her husband. Well, being a governess is a 24/7 job, Lizzie, Pip replied. Not that you'd understand, living off the cozy handouts from the family you married into. Oh, burn, Kara laughed, holding up a hand for a high five. Pip wasn't done. I also heard something suspicious while on my way to make that phone call. Turning toward Zach, she continued, you were with your father in his study, the very scene of his murder, having a very heated argument. Pip glanced down at her booklet for accuracy. I picked up a few specific phrases from the exchange. I refuse to do that, father, followed by, this scheme of yours is ridiculous and will never work. And lastly, I distinctly heard, you won't get away with this. She looked up, fixing her eyes on Zach. Care to elaborate on your argument with a man who ended up murdered? Yes, I do care to elaborate, Zach said firmly. We were talking business, okay? My father and I still worked closely together on matters relating to his hotel and casino empire, making decisions, planning strategy. The truth is, the business hasn't been doing so well lately. We're under a lot of pressure from our main competitors in the luxury hotel and casino industry, the Garza family. Kara sniffed, distracting Pip for a moment. Or maybe it wasn't her, maybe it was another sound. A thud. A muffled bang from outside. Probably nothing. Zach continued, unaware of the brief interruption. As you know, the Garza family have long been our rivals. And things have gotten a lot less friendly, and a lot more ugly, since dear mother died. He turned toward the inspector to offer context. Our mother used to be friends, or at least friendly, with Mrs. Garza. But lately, the Garzas have been stepping all over our turf, so to speak. We still bring in more money than they do, but only just. He sighed. Father and I were having a disagreement about a new business strategy to make sure customers kept choosing our casino over the Garzas. That's all it was. We disagreed often about the business, but it always worked out in the end. Pip asked about the won't get away with this part. Well, that was a slightly different conversation, Zach said. Father told me he'd had someone check the books, and it looked like someone was skimming money from the London casino, one of the employees. He glanced toward the non-Remy side of the table, then stared down the Remy side. Hey, don't look at me, Ant said, raising his hands. Daddy fired me years ago. Can't be me. Someone stealing? At my casino? Lauren asked, frowning. You mean the one you manage, Lizzie, Pip replied. Zach nodded. I just said we'd look into it and that the thief wouldn't get away with it, or something like that. Nothing suspicious here. He raised both hands, as if to show he had nothing to hide. That's when Pip heard it again, or thought she did. Something outside. She turned to the window. It was dark now, well on its way to pitch black. What? Kara asked. I think I heard something outside, Pip said. What? Lauren repeated, the haughty edge of Lizzie Remy slipping from her voice. I'm not sure, Pip replied. They listened, but the jazz music playing in the background was too loud, the saxophone drowning out everything else. Alexa, pause music. Connor called. The music cut off, and for a moment, there was only a loud kind of quiet, the sound of everyone's breath, the soft movements of Pip's tongue in her mouth, and the faint whistling of the wind. Then it happened again. A crash outside, somewhere in the darkening garden. Connor's head snapped toward his brother, panic pooling in the darkness of his eyes. Jamie held his gaze for a moment, then broke into a smile. God, you lot are jumpy, he said. It's just the shed door, sometimes it bangs open in the wind. It's fine. Are you sure? Lauren asked. Pip noticed her arm had somehow found its way through Ant's. Yes, Jamie laughed. Well, excuse us for growing up in Murder Town, Lauren countered. Could be ghosts, Aunt said. I certainly know of 2 local vengeful spirits who could fit the bill. Aunt, Kara said in a warning tone. Everything's fine, Jamie cut in. Just ignore it. Alexa, resume music, and volume up. The music started again, louder this time. See? Can hardly hear it anymore. No actual murder tonight, kiddos. Right back to 1924. He straightened his helmet, and Pip picked up her pen again. As any detective knows, she began, a killer must have a motive. I wonder if anyone among us might have held a grudge against the late Reginald. Please turn to your next page. In this round, you must reveal a tense interaction you witnessed between Lizzie and Reginald earlier this evening. While you were taking tea in the library with Lizzie, Ralph, and Reginald, Lizzie accidentally spilled some jam from her scones onto her hand and dress. Reginald made a pointed remark, saying she often had sticky fingers. Lizzie appeared shocked and quickly left the room, saying she needed to clean herself up. Pip paid close attention to the other secrets being revealed around the room. She glanced over at Lauren, who was reading her own booklet, biting her lip in concentration. Then, Lauren's eyes suddenly flicked up and met hers. Pip's stomach dropped. They held each other's gaze for a long moment until Lauren sniffed and looked away, her mouth curled down in a scowl. Pip thought back to Reginald's sticky fingers comment. That phrase, she was sure, meant someone who steals. A thief. She grabbed her notebook and began to write. Last night, she had overheard Reginald and Ralph discussing someone stealing from the London casino, the one Lizzie Remy manages. And today, Reginald had made that pointed comment. It must have been aimed at Lizzie. He must have suspected her of stealing from the casino. Judging by her reaction, maybe he was right. And if Lizzie knew that Reginald knew, well, that was motive enough to kill him. Her only other option might have been prison. Pip's thoughts were interrupted by Zack clearing his throat and launching into a speech. Well, yes, Inspector, if you're asking about ill feeling within the family, I'm afraid there was quite a lot between my brother Bobby and my father, as no doubt evidenced by him being written out of the will. Aunt poked Zack a little too close to the eye, causing Zack to recoil. Anyway, Zack continued, this tension really began several years ago, back when Bobby still worked for my father and was the heir to the casino empire. Spending every day around casinos, Bobby developed a serious gambling addiction. He was constantly in debt and borrowing money. When the banks refused to lend to him anymore, he turned to less reputable sources, gangs. He borrowed money from a group of loan sharks and, of course, lost it all gambling again. When he couldn't pay them back, they threatened to kill him. So my father bailed Bobby out. He paid off the gang and cleared all his debts to save his life. But from that day on, my father forbade Bobby from having anything to do with the Remy business. He said he would continue to pay Bobby a monthly allowance so he could live comfortably, but warned that if Bobby ever gambled again, even once, he would cut him off for good. It was a clear ultimatum. Yes, Aunt nodded. That's all true. I borrowed money from the wrong people. It was a gang called the East End Streeters, if you must know. But I don't know why you think that means I held a grudge against our father. He saved my life. And more than that, he continued to pay me to do absolutely nothing. It was a perfect situation for me. No grudge here. Ah, Jamie said, reading from his script. The East End Streeters are a nasty bunch. We at Scotland Yard have had many dealings with them. They're in the cocaine business, you see, among other illegal activities. Earlier this year, my partner was working undercover to track their cocaine operations, but they must have figured it out. They murdered him, shot him dead in the street. Very nasty business. I'm glad to see you came out the other side unharmed, Bobby. Thank you, Inspector. Pip filled another page in her notebook. Does anyone else know someone here who bore ill will toward Reginald? Jamie asked. Pip raised her hand. Earlier this evening, she began, carefully avoiding Lauren's eyes. Lizzie, Ralph, and I were having tea and scones in the library with Reginald, as you've already heard. There was a moment when Lizzie spilled jam on her hands and dress, and she was making a fuss. Reginald looked at her and commented that she often had sticky fingers. Pip paused. You could have cut the tension in the room with a knife. Lizzie looked shocked and quickly made an excuse to leave. Oh, sticky fingers, Lizzie? Kara said, waggling her eyebrows. It means someone who steals, Pip clarified. Kara waved her hand. Oh, that's not as fun. Lauren laughed and dismissed it with a wave. That's nothing. There was no tension, and I'm not sure what you're implying. She turned to stare Pip down. Reginald loved to tease me, as his only daughter-in-law. I'm very clumsy, always spilling food on myself. Hence, the sticky fingers. Sure, Jan, Kara muttered, mimicking the meme with her face. Anyway, I have something too, Kara added brightly. The table turned their attention to her as she fully stepped into her character as Dora Key, the cook. She sat up tall, fiddling with her apron. As the only members of staff here, Humphrey and I often chat in the evenings, after our work is done, to pass the time. And, well, she side-glanced across Pip, clearly directing it at Connor. This past week, our conversations have taken a darker turn. Quite disturbing, in light of what's happened. What? Pip asked impatiently. Well, earlier this week, Humphrey was complaining about the master, and I said, oh, he's not that bad. To which Humphrey replied, and I quote, I hate him. Someone gasp, please. Jamie and Zach enthusiastically complied. Pip, meanwhile, was too busy writing. Yes, thank you, Kara nodded at them. But that's not the worst part. It gets worse? Aunt said, staring at Connor.